to India and Ireland, round Africa and back again. We don't really need to know just where we'll go. Maybe Canada, then to Brazil, then through the Alpine foothills. All I really want to know is, can we go? Oh baby, can we go? Round and around the globe.
Welcome to Take Me With You, episode 26. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Cheryl. We are two well-traveled people who want to go everywhere.
But that's not going to happen. So instead, we'll travel vicariously by inviting a guest to share their unique travel stories with us.
Today we're talking to you, Ryan.
Are we really?
Yeah, because you just went to the Galapagos.
I
am
did.
so stoked about this. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I have been trying to avoid, you've been doing these really great social media posts, and I'll see them and be like, that looks really fun, but I'm not gonna stare too long at the pictures or anything, just because it's like I just want to hear about the whole trip without really knowing much.
Yeah.
Because I didn't even know until a couple days before you took the trip that there was something about a boat, and
Yeah.
I was like, la 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 la, don't tell me, because I was like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know anything. And so it's so fun. I'm just really excited. I feel like, all I know is that you went with students.
I did.
Over spring break.
Correct.
That is the extent of my knowledge.
Yeah.
So,
well, and you know where I went.
yes. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And that it was you. So we got the who, we got the what, the where, why was the class trip.
And the when.
But when. I don't know the how.
Okay.
Airplanes?
Yeah. So,
first of all,
yes.
What was the highlight?
So I think what I'm going to say for the highlight is not going to be one particular event, but it was a characteristic of this trip that was really impressive. When we got there, the naturalists, so the Galapagos Islands are off the western coast of Ecuador. So they're in the Pacific Ocean, but they're not in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Okay.
So just as far as orientation.
Open up a map while you're talking.
I was actually just going to pull one up too, just to make sure, because I don't remember north-south exactly what they line up underneath, but I want to say it's Arizona-ish, because really time zone difference, it's only 1 hour ahead of us here on the West Coast.
That's crazy, because I have it so stuck in my head that if you travel that far of a distance, that it's a totally different time zone. And even before we were recording, I was asking you about jet lag.
Right.
And you were like, I don't know, I'm fine. You probably just had travel fatigue, but not jet lag.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. Well, yes. And so let me see here. Galapagos Islands, almost. Oh, not even. It's south of Louisiana.
Oh, yeah.
Edge of Texas, Louisiana. So it's a little bit farther over there.
And I forgot how close that is to the equator.
It's on the equator. Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
Technically, the portion of the Galapagos that we were at were all south of the equator. But the northern portion of the Galapagos Islands do cross the equator. So, for all intents and purposes, we were on the equator.
That's so cool.
Even though technically it was the southern hemisphere.
Also, in my mind, I felt like I was picturing it on. I was picturing a couple different places. One was maybe near Puerto Rico.
Oh, uh huh.
It was one idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there's a bunch of other islands out there,
Yeah.
Or just east of South America. But this is west of South
It is.
America.
It's west, so it's closer.
That's so interesting.
As far as east-west goes, to those of us who live on the West Coast.
Okay, so what was the highlight?
Okay, so the highlight. So these islands are very, very strongly protected as far as ecologically protected. So they became a national park or whatever in the 1950s. And so they've been working on conservation since then. So a long time, right? Whatever that is, almost 70 years, I guess. And because of what they do to protect the animals and the habitat and all that sort of thing, the animals that live on the Galapagos Islands do not have a natural fear of humans.
Wow.
So you can get right up next to them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
To the point where they have a rule, a requirement that you need to stay 2 meters, which is just about 6 feet. It's a little bit longer than 6 feet, but away from the animals, because you could totally walk right up to them and you're not allowed to touch them. But like, you could walk up to them. So I think my highlight is I have never been closer to wild animals before in my life. And it was so cool to just be there, and they would just be there, and then they would like walk across the path in front of you, or like a sea lion would just kind of be laying there, or like and they're just there, and you can, they're not afraid, they're not intimidated, they might kind of look at you funny and then like go back to what they're doing. Like that was really, really cool.
So this might be a stupid question, but like, are there just no predators?
There are very few predators. So a lot of the organisms, at least that we ran into, don't really, on the land,
they're not carnivores.
Yeah, don't really have predators.
Wow,
yeah,
that's so interesting.
Yeah, it's a very unique ecosystem. Now, in the marine ecosystem, in the water, there are more predators. Like, we definitely saw sharks, and those are predators.
Sure,
yeah.
That sounds like heaven. Like, that seriously sounds like, what is heaven going to be like? And it's like, hanging out with wild
really
animals.
Cool. It was, I mean, again, we weren't allowed to touch them, so I didn't try. But I have no doubt that if I wanted to, I probably could have.
Wow. That's awesome. That's really neat.
Yeah.
How fun. All right. And I don't like this question, but what was the low?
Well, so it depends on whether we're including the travel or just on the islands.
I'm going to say the whole experience.
Then definitely the flight down.
Really? So what happened?
I experienced a flight that had the most turbulence I have ever experienced in my life for the longest period of time. So I flew out of SeaTac Airport in just south of Seattle, because I live in the Seattle area. And so we flew from here to Dallas to Miami down to Quito, Ecuador. And then we had a day there, and then we flew out to the islands the next day. And so basically, once we crossed the Rocky Mountains, all the way until we landed in Dallas, it was turbulent that entire time for like hours.
Really?
Yeah. And I've never gotten like airsick before. So I am prone to motion sickness. I definitely get car sick, and on a boat, depending on like how much is like going, like I can get motion sickness, but I've never been motion sick on a plane until this trip. A young lady that was sitting directly row behind me threw up. One of the guys in our group who was across the way threw up.
Oh, so you had like puking people around
and
you,
the
which
smell,
is like not going to help the situation at all.
And I didn't actually end up throwing up, but I like had the barf bag. I was like breathing in and out of it. And like
I hate that moment.
And it wasn't a moment. It lasted for hours because it didn't like fully go away even when I got off the plane. And we only had, I don't know, maybe a half an hour by the time we landed and deplaned before we had to get on the next plane. I was just like, this is not good. This is not good. I'm about to get another plane. This is not good. So I didn't actually end up throwing up, which is really good, but it was a miserable trip. I mean, it really wasn't until we got to Miami before I really started to feel a little bit better.
So I've had that just a couple times, which is funny because like, I don't normally get motion sickness, and then every once in a while in the car, I do. And we talked about it actually on Daryl's episode where he and I went to San Diego, and he shared about that. That I got that on that flight. So he actually thinks it's more like when altitude is changing, because it tends to be in the car, like if we're going up a hill and turning or stuff like that.
Yeah, and altitude can definitely make a difference.
Yeah, and so turbulence has never done that to me. And now I'm trying to think about like, as you think about packing and like what, like what could someone bring on a trip? And I'm even thinking like just something that smells really strong so that if people are puking around you, you can like smell your like peppermint oil or like something, you know what I mean? Because I know that some people like to pack ginger in some form or another because ginger is kind of a natural, like...
It is. And I actually did quite a bit of research before because I thought, well, maybe depending on like what the ship's like and what they can... Like I knew I might get motion sick. So I actually brought Dramamine with me.
Okay.
But it was in my checked bag. Because I don't get airsick, so I didn't think I would need it on the plane. Well, I will now always fly with Dramamine in my carry-on.
There you go. I do fly with a few different, like, I just traveled with a few different, like, drugs and stuff but I definitely have them, like, accessible on the plane in case I get, like, a headache or something else, but I love to fly, actually, just for funsies, I like to fly with ginger chews, which are, like, in this little package, and they're, like, a gummy thing. It can take you a long time, like, if you suck on them, and they're really strong. But it also makes me wonder, like, if people were puking around me, I would probably pop one of those in my mouth just to have, like, something other than, like, vomit smell around me.
Yeah, so. It was not pleasant.
That's too bad. But then the way home was okay?
I also took a Dramamine. I was like, I'm not playing this game anymore. I'm not risking it. Like, even if it would be fine, it's not worth it. Like, it's gonna... Yeah, because apparently there's different formulations of Dramamine. I've never actually bought it prior to this trip before, because again, that's not usually an issue for me traveling. And so the one that I had bought is actually not drowsy. So it doesn't make you, because that's the thing that a lot of people have said is like, yeah, but it'll knock you out and you'll be super tired. It's like,
which might be nice if you want to sleep on the
exactly,
plane,
which I normally don't sleep on a plane. So I was like, that's fine. It can knock me out. I don't mind. But it didn't. It was a 24-hour thing, and technically it wasn't like an it wasn't an anti-nausea, it was anti-throw up, I don't know, whatever. Point is, it worked fine for me, and whether it was that or whether it was just that it wasn't as turbulent, because it definitely was not, I don't really care which one it was. I did not have as bad of a flight home, so that's good.
There you go. I mean, that's good. Wow. Okay. Well, let's hear about some of the other highlights of the trip. So tell me all about it. I just love to hear even like how did it work like planning wise for this trip as well? Yeah.
So this is interesting on a number of levels for me, and I don't remember how much of this I've mentioned on the podcast, but 10 years ago this year, I went on my first student trip as a chaperone. So a coworker of mine who was a French teacher, we went to France. And so, but that was in 2009, so 10 years ago. So it's kind of cool to be going on a trip on spring break with students still 10 years later. Like, I think that's kind of cool. And so I knew that I wanted to travel, and I don't remember when it was, but I realized that traveling as a teacher, and don't get me wrong, I'm not poor. It's not like I'm destitute and begging, but I also don't make a huge amount of money where I can just kind of travel whenever I want and it's super easy and I don't have to worry about money.
You still have to save.
Right. Like it still needs to be a definite conscious choice. And so to be able to travel the way I want, I had the realization that if I lead student trips, I can travel a lot more than what I would be able to do on my own. And as I started doing some of those things, like originally, it was actually kind of selfish because I wanted to travel and it was a way for me to travel. But as I started doing it and saw the experiences that students had, I really started to also believe that it's really important to provide those opportunities for students so that they can have exposure to travel and other cultures and just those things that they wouldn't be able to understand as well otherwise. And the France trip was a lot, it was French students who were taking French, right? And so they were practicing the language. That was the main focus. I got to go as a chaperone, which was really fun. And side note, it's really sad today, the day that we're recording, with
Yeah.
Notre Dame, like the roof
Oh my goodness.
burning down. I just,
Yeah,
it's just so sad.
I know.
So
yeah,
anyway,
that's such a tragedy.
yeah. But then also recently, the last several years, I've tried to do student travel trips that focus on science.
That's perfect.
It is, because of course I teach science and I love science, and there's
And then you get to go on a science trip.
I get to go on a science
and
trip
then share
too.
your passion with
Yeah,
others,
yeah.
and all of that is great.
Exactly. And so it's just really cool. I don't do all the planning myself, and it is much more of a tour organized thing than I would necessarily prefer to travel on my own independently.
Yeah.
But again, it's like, okay, but if it's either travel in these groups and travel with students, or don't travel as much, I mean, then yeah, I'm still going to pick this. And there are advantages to tour groups at times too, as much as I think you're similar to me in that we'd rather have that freedom.
Resistant. Yeah.
There are certain things, like when we have our own guide who knows the area and we can ask them questions. I can ask them, questions about the geology or the history or, those sorts of things, to be able to have that resource can be really helpful. So we picked the Galapagos Islands for this year. And
that's so cool.
yeah, so it's definitely a biology highlight. So a lot of biology. And while we were there, so it was me and one other biology teacher who kind of like headed it up. There was a third teacher that we wanted to come as well. We just didn't get enough people to sign up for her to be able to go.
Okay.
Which is unfortunate
Gotcha.
because we really wanted her to be there. But it's unfortunately kind of how it goes. But while we were there, we definitely were like, and there's this and there's this. We're like, okay, so basically our entire second semester of our biology class is like illustrated in front of us right here on this island. And so like
that's amazing.
It's so cool. And so
that sounds like the magic school bus.
It kind of was like the magic school bus a little bit. And that's the other thing about taking students traveling when it comes to like science. There's learning and experiences that they do, even just related to science, separate from the just travel. But when they actually get to go out and see and experience these things, they understand it and learn it in a way that we can never replicate in the classroom.
Yeah.
And so just from a learning perspective, I think that it's incredibly valuable to provide these opportunities for students as well. And obviously not all families can afford it. Not all students can do it. I mean, I wish, we could, but that's just not the reality of, where we live and the situation that people are in. But I still think for those who can, it's a pretty awesome experience. And
that's so
love
cool.
to be able to provide that.
That's awesome. So the Galapagos, let me tell you what I know about it. And then there's a lot of gaps in my knowledge. So, penguins.
Yeah.
The Galapagos penguin.
Yep. Saw them.
You saw the Galapagos penguin.
I did. I can show you some pictures too.
That's so exciting. And then tortoises, one of the two.
Both. We only saw the tortoises. I didn't see any turtles.
Okay.
But
hot weather because of the equator.
Yep.
Okay. And then I don't know. I don't know what to picture with these islands. Even cities are interesting architecture. Is there anything like that? Is it all one-story buildings and huts? It just I don't know what to picture. What is the civilization there like? What is the culture there? I just I have very little knowledge about the Galapagos Islands. So
and to be fair,
fill me in.
A lot of those things I didn't know either. Necessarily. So the landscape of the islands is very different than what I expected. So just to give you a little bit of geologic background, the Galapagos Islands are formed because of a hotspot, which is the same thing that forms the Hawaiian Islands. So it means that, what tectonic plates are. Here's your little science lesson, right? So tectonic plates, the Pacific Plate, and inside the Earth, below the crust of the Earth, is this extra warm spot in the mantle, and this plume comes up of what you can basically think of as magma, and it kind of goes up through the plate and forms an island, right? A volcano. But the plate is moving and the hot spot isn't. And so the plate moves across it. And as it moves, you get a little boop, there's a little island. And then it moves farther, boop, there's another little island. It moves farther, boop, there's another little island. So you end up with a chain of islands. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
So
that's why there's like a bunch of them. All
that's
next
why
to
there's
each other.
quite a few of them. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's more complicated than that, but that's the basics. So some of the things, so my coworker who I went with, Ashley, who's actually been on this podcast before, she talked about going to Mexico and swimming with whale sharks.
Yeah.
Yep. So she was the coworker that I went with, and she and her partner lived in Hawaii for several years. And so there were every once in a while she would mention, "Oh my gosh, this reminds me of Hawaii." And I've never been to Hawaii, so I wouldn't know.
Okay.
But so there's definitely some similarities there. Interestingly enough, Iceland, where we went to spring break last year with students, also formed on a hotspot. So there were similarities on some of the islands that I saw with Iceland.
That's so interesting because they're all in different parts of the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, they are.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, there are a lot more hotspots than I realized. So depending on the age of the islands, because since they form with these like little different just like spurts as the plate moves, the islands are different ages. So the older islands have more vegetation than the younger islands.
That would make sense. Yeah.
Right? Because they've had a lot more time for things to kind of like blow on the wind and plants to get there and erosion to break things down and animals to get there, all that sort of stuff. So depending on which island we went on depended on what we saw. Now, we didn't go to all of the islands, but we went to, I think, 4 or 5 of the islands. And there's like 12 or something. I don't know how many. Depends on how big it needs to be to count as an island, I think.
Gotcha.
There's lots of little things.
And are there a lot of people that live there?
So there's about 30,000 people that live on the Galapagos Islands.
Okay. That's pretty small.
It is pretty small.
Yeah. Okay. And is it, I mean, you haven't been to Hawaii. I'm just trying to think about, is it similar to Hawaii where it's like the jobs there are just kind of like to sustain the civilization?
I think a lot of them are.
Like,
I think a lot of them are because a large percentage of the islands are not populated. So it's only a few islands that have people on them besides just like the naturalists or the tour groups that are there for a couple hours. Yeah. And there are some islands that like no people, like there was, and I'm going to forget, I want to say it was North and South Plaza Island. And we went to South Plaza Island, but just like right across the water was North Plaza Island. People are allowed to go on to South Plaza Island. People are not allowed on North Plaza Island.
Just because they're trying to really like
just
maintain...
protect it. Yep. And just not have any influence at all.
Cool.
Yeah. There were all sorts of rules that the naturalists shared, like no plastic is allowed. Like you cannot bring plastic. Not just like, okay, I'll make sure I throw it away. They're like, nope, you just cannot bring plastic like onto the islands.
So there's just not plastic in the Galapagos Islands?
Like we could have plastic on the ship, but we were not allowed to take it off the ship onto one of the islands.
So what does that look like in a grocery store then? Yeah,
I don't know how it works there because for that on that particular island, which is the oldest one, where that's the only one that we really saw like civilization. Really, I wonder if that's not the case there.
Interesting.
But like,
so what did that civilization look like?
I mean, I could show you pictures. Let's see. So,
like, did it look like a modern?
It looked like you would expect, like South America to look. It looked very South American. Okay. I'm scrolling through my pictures here quickly, or as quickly as I can. Oh no, that's too far. So the civilization that we saw was on San Cristobal Island, which is the oldest one. And so there are restaurants. So we stopped and had lunch on the island. They have like road signs and things. We stayed in this really cool pavement, this really cool building. There was like a restaurant, and then there was like a little hotel, like B&B.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah, it's really cool looking. It's like kind of this kind of white, kind of like what I would picture like on Santorini or something. This very, very white.
Yeah.
And it has like these
the white and the blue.
and blue roofs, but it's much more of that Hispanic style with like the arches and things. It's just not the colors that you would
Yeah.
normally see. So that was kind of cool. Just kind of driving around the city. It doesn't feel super high tech or modern necessarily. Again, more like what you
Mhm.
picture with South America. I mean, it's warmer down there, so that changes things. We drove past like a school. There's a waterfront that has flags.
It reminds me kind of like the less modern parts of Hawaii-ish.
Okay.
As far as just like it's super green and then there's like pavement and buildings.
Yeah.
But like it looks so natural as well.
Yeah.
But most of Hawaii that I've been to and most people have is more like just looks like a city.
Yeah. And it wasn't, I was never anywhere on the Galapagos that felt like a big, where I felt like, oh, this is a city like I'm used to. It still had a definitely like a small town feel.
That's
to
so
it.
fun. So did you see any chain stores or restaurants or anything?
Not on the Galapagos.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that they're not there. I mean, we didn't spend
but
a
you
lot of
didn't
time
see
there,
them.
but yeah, I didn't see any.
Okay. There's not like a Starbucks or like a
No.
McDonald's or things like that. Okay.
I didn't
Interesting.
see any. We flew into an island called Baltra, and I'm pretty sure the only thing on that island is the airport and like the dock, like the seaport. So San Cristobal Island is definitely, again, that's the oldest island. So it has trees and mountains and flowers and homes that people lived in and things like that. So it felt like the most developed, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can, they had cars. It was paved, sort of. It was kind of a cobblestone type, but like smooth and modern. It wasn't like ancient, but it also wasn't this like super nice, beautiful, manicured for tourist resort town either, like in Mexico necessarily, like, the main strips or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay. So that's interesting. So do you want to tell me about like what like your schedule looked like on this trip?
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about the actual islands themselves and what we saw and experienced on the islands. We did do some additional things right before and right after. So we spent some time in Quito, which is the capital city of Ecuador.
Okay.
And we also spent like an afternoon in Guayaquil, which is also in Ecuador.
Okay.
But I'm not really going to talk about them at this point because
Okay.
I'm going to there's so much to talk about with the islands themselves.
Yeah.
And I'll like hit some of the cool things from those cities and like a wish you were here in the future.
Great.
So you'll hear more stuff about that, but I'm just going to focus on the islands themselves. So we flew out to Baltra Island and had to go through their own sort of like customs and immigration type thing. They search your bags. They make sure that you are not bringing anything that, can't be on the islands. Like you can have like plastic and stuff in your bags, but you can't but they're going to monitor it very closely, I guess.
Okay. Gotcha.
So we flew out there, we kind of went through that, and then we lined up, and the cruise, so it was a cruise that we went on in the Galapagos Islands.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, that's the ship part that you didn't really know about, apparently.
Yeah.
So it was a cruise. So then they pick us up and we all kind of give them our bags and then we load onto a bus and they drive for about, 5 minutes maybe down to this dock where we get on dinghies or like Zodiacs or the like big, more official rafts basically that have motors on the back. And then they took us out to the ship where we loaded onto the ship. And then we kind of, get oriented and they take our passports and check us in. They give us an orientation, like, here's the ship. We did safety routines, like where the life vests are and where to go in case of an emergency, all of that sort of stuff that you would typically do. And then once everyone was on board and they were sure, then off we go to the first excursion. So this is, the first day is only about a half day and it already was full of all sorts of stuff.
Wow.
So even just on the dock, there was a pelican hanging out. And then we saw a marine iguana Well, as we were just hanging out there.
How big are those?
And the marine iguanas are like, I don't know, 5-6 feet long.
Wow.
Like if you include the tail.
Okay.
I mean, depending on the iguana, of course. Maybe a little bit smaller than that.
Wow.
So
that's so
just
cool.
so you see, so here's the ship that we were on.
Okay, so how many
for
passengers?
some scale.
was
100
it?
passengers
Okay,
plus about
so that's
50
a pretty
crew.
small cruise ship then.
As far as a cruise ship goes,
yes.
it's small. That is the largest ship in the Galapagos Islands.
Got it. Okay.
So there's a lot of smaller ships that do
And that's
either
why
day
it
trips
can't
or
dock. Like it can't get close
Correct.
enough that people could just
Correct.
board on it. So you have to take the little
Right.
boats out.
exactly,
Gotcha.
which works out fine. You know, it's not a super big deal. So they gave us lunch, which it was super fancy because, and I even took a picture of it, even though it's not actually important, but I thought it was kind of cool. We had our own section reserved.
Ooh. Oh, I like that table.
So in the dining room. So that was fun. So they served us lunch. And then I think 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, out we go to our first island.
Okay, and is everyone on the cruise ship doing the same experience?
More or less. So this particular cruise ship company, it's called Go Galapagos, and we were on the ship that was called the Legend.
Okay.
So they have 4 different tours that they do. And we did itinerary C. And some people you can like link up and add multiple ones together. So
Okay.
ours was 4 days, 3 nights. And then there was another one that was, I think, 4 nights and 5 days, which was itinerary D that came after ours, which was C. And there were a few people who were staying for that one.
Okay. Got
If that
it.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So while we were there, everyone was pretty much doing the same thing, although they broke the whole ship down into small groups of 15. And so your group then went and had their own naturalist guide. So think of it kind of like a
Wow.
park ranger.
Yeah.
And the Galapagos requires that all groups, all people that go to the Galapagos, if they're actually going to go on an island, they must have a naturalist at all times with them.
Wow. So they're putting in a lot of effort to really preserve it
Yeah.
then. That is so fascinating.
More so than I personally have ever heard or experienced anywhere else.
Wow.
Like
Wow.
it's super, like they are really serious about preserving that ecosystem,
Wow.
which I think is great. And it really pays off. Like you can tell, like there isn't trash all over the place.
Wow.
And the animals really are just super natural and responsive. And it's really cool.
That's really neat.
So one of the other things, so as we pulled out from Baltra, these frigate birds, which are these really cool big birds.
Frigate birds.
Yep, frigate birds. They started flying with our ship.
Wow, that's fun.
It was really cool, but it was ridiculous because they were really, really close.
Well, I've
So,
seen
like-
seagulls do that with like a ferry.
Sure,
Oh, these are bigger than seagulls, though.
they are definitely bigger than seagulls. And I'm
Okay.
going to show you this video, Cheryl.
Yeah.
And so these frigate birds are mostly all black, and then the males have this like red pouch, but like
Ooh.
so close. I don't know if you could tell how close that was, but
It's, like,
literally
right over your head.
I could have reached out my arm and grabbed its wing.
That's so funny.
That is how close it was to me.
So they must really just like is that kind of like how when birds fly in formation, like the wind and whatever kind of does some of the work for them? Do you think it's a similar thing?
It is a
With the
similar
boat?
thing because you'll notice, as you can probably see in the video, they're not flapping very much. They're mostly
Yeah.
gliding, and that's the way the frigate birds tend to fly. It's mostly like they ride the air currents and things like that. But like one of the things about the like seagulls, you mentioned seagulls,
Yeah.
and they like people feed them, so they hang around to get food.
Got
We're
it.
not allowed to feed the animals.
Oh yeah.
So they're not flying close to the ship because they know they can get food.
They're just flying close to the ship then.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
I did see one out the back of the ship actually dive in our wake and come up with a fish in its mouth.
That's fun.
So maybe they can get food a little bit that way.
Yeah, they
but
might have
that's
just learned that that's a good way to like fly easier
Yeah.
or look for fish
Yeah.
or things like that. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
But again, it was just super cool that they were so close. And that was the whole thing. So I got lots of pictures. I may have taken like 1,400 pictures.
Nice.
Because they're like...
Those are frigate birds. The shape of their wings is really interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of like an M shape almost.
Looks like a throwing star, but it's not a star.
Yeah. They're very cool. So then we went to our first beach. And we went to many beaches.
Pretty. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, like white sand.
Like yeah.
Yeah,
Totally.
I mean, this one's actually more of a yellowish sand. There was a white sand one that we went to a little bit later. And got to do...
is the big thing, yeah.
Queen sand?
Clean. It's very clean looking still.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's definitely clean. Yeah, for sure. And so we could kind of walk around on the beach area, and this was our first chance to go snorkeling. And there were tons of opportunities to go snorkeling.
So fun.
Well, sure.
Except for that you don't swim.
I don't really swim.
So you went to the Galapagos Islands and you don't swim.
Right. So they provided life vests so that you could wear they're not like the typical like big orange ones. They had those on the ship for emergencies, but these were just like you could like self-inflate it to the amount that you wanted or deflate it. And so you could kind of use it to kind of keep yourself buoyant. And it's also salt water so that you're a little bit more buoyant in salt water anyway. But my biggest thing, because I tried snorkeling one other time when I was at the Great Barrier Reef, and it was not very successful. And the challenge for me is my facial hair.
Why?
Because I can't get a seal on my mask.
Oh.
So what ends up happening is water starts to seep in my nose and I start inhaling seawater.
Oh, that's interesting. I would have not thought about that. But because like I forgot that the mask covers your nose.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So this first day was me being like, okay, I've got to see if I can even make this thing work at all. And it's funny because like because I'm not a great swimmer, I do have a fairly strong fear of water.
I mean, sure. Yeah.
I think that's not irrational.
No, I think that's pretty rational. Yeah.
And I found like just reflexes, like when I would like put my head or even just my face underwater, I would start breathing like super fast. And so I had to like intentionally slow my breathing because I was like, my body was freaking out. Like, your head is underwater, you are going to drown. And I had to train myself.
Because in swim lessons, like one of the first things they do is have you just put your face in the water, just to start getting used to that.
I remember that.
Or like blowing bubbles and all that stuff. And so
Yeah. So, for me, part of it was just trying to figure out how to make the whole thing work. And it was better than it had been. So I did actually end up doing a little bit of snorkeling, which was fun. And I even had a sea lion come up and like swim by me.
Oh,
which was kind of fun. It was a little freaky for me because, again, we're supposed to stay like 2 meters away and I have zero control when I'm in the water. So I'm like, how do I move out of the sea lion's way? How do I move out of the sea lion's way? Whatever. I was fine. The sea lion was fine.
So what did you do? How did you take these pictures? What did you do for that?
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, you're looking at underwater pictures.
Yeah.
And I took all my pictures with my phone.
Okay.
And so last year when I went to Iceland, I bought, it's like a little bag that you can buy. I just got it on Amazon, and you can like slip your phone in and it like seals on the top. Nice. And that worked okay. It was a little hard to like work the buttons and things. So this time, again, from Amazon, I just bought a waterproof case for my particular phone model.
Great. That's really cool. Yeah, I have one for my phone that is really great, and it has different like attachments for the case too. So there's even like a floaty attachment if you want.
Oh, nice.
And I bring that kayaking. And so that's
smart.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, I think I spent like $12 or something on it. It was not super expensive, but I had like a little arm thing. So I like kept it in the pocket in my swim trunks. So there was like a Velcro pocket. And then when I wanted to pull it out, I would pull it out and then put the strap around my hand and then take some pictures. So, and it held up just fine because my phone technically is waterproof. the IP whatever 68
but
or whatever.
It is salt water too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's salt water, which is different. And I was like, you know what? It's just not worth it. I would rather have a waterproof phone inside of a waterproof case.
Yeah,
just to make sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it did. It worked great. Like I never had any issues. It
Cool.
didn't cause any issues with my phone at
That's
all.
fantastic. That's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you went in the water even though you're not a swimmer. That's pretty awesome.
I did. Well, because I knew that I wanted to have those experiences and wanted to be able to see things.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I just need to figure it out. And actually what I ended up doing that I finally figured out a system that would work for me at least somewhat. I ended up through the nose guard or whatever on the snorkel mask. I just pinched my nose shut. Just like I would do going underwater.
Yeah. There you go.
And I was like, well, that'll keep salt water from going up my nose because salt water kept going up my nose. And by the way, it burns and is very uncomfortable. In case you've never had salt water go up your nose, don't.
I'm sure I have at some point, but
yeah, it was not fun. So I was like, and even then, eventually, like water would get in. But I figured out that if I not tracked it, but like paid attention, and then I would just like put my head above, I would blow out my nose. It would blow out all the water.
There you go.
And then I would like breathe in, and then I would pinch my nose right after I'd breathed in. So like there wasn't any like gap of air in there.
Yeah.
So it took me a little bit to get the hang of it, but I got it to the place where, because we went snorkeling, I think like there were like 4 or 5 different opportunities to go snorkeling.
Wow.
So I was like, I'm going to make this a thing that I can do at least somewhat. So.
Wow. So what
was good for me.
The coolest animals you saw?
I didn't see a whole lot in the snorkeling that I did.
Okay, I mean just on the whole trip. What were the
on the
coolest
whole
animals?
trip?
Yeah.
Probably the boobies.
Oh yeah, that's right. Are there blue or brown down there?
So there are blue-footed boobies,
Okay.
there are red-footed boobies, and there are Nazca boobies. So there are 3 different types of boobies.
Okay.
In the Galapagos Islands. Blue-footed boobies apparently are not unique to the Galapagos.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I think Ashley said that she saw them when they were in Mexico.
Okay. Interesting. Now, are their sizes all the same, the different kinds of them?
They're not exactly the same, but they're similar in size.
Okay.
And let me see if I can find some pictures. They're beautiful birds. They're super beautiful. Oh, but before I do that, as I'm scrolling through here, I need to show you another bird that I know you would want to see.
Is it a penguin?
It's a penguin.
Oh.
And my pictures aren't the best pictures of the penguins.
You saw penguins.
I did. I saw Galapagos penguins. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
The farthest north. There it is.
Oh.
The farthest north that penguins live. I mean, it looked like a penguin.
He's hanging out.
Yeah,
the Galapagos
just
penguins
on the
are
rock.
pretty small. Could you tell
compared
at
to
all?
penguins, I think that's
for
true.
penguins,
Yes,
they're on the small side. Yeah,
I believe that's correct. I'm not a penguinosaur, so I couldn't tell you.
I mean,
I'm
I
looking
don't
before we
eat
saw 'em
penguins,
again.
so like, I'm not
Well,
a
I wasn't-
penguinosaur either. But
I wasn't claiming eating them. There's another spot here where we saw some laying down
where are
sleeping.
you at, penguins?
The crabs were really cool. They were like
Really?
super bright red.
Oh, that's fun. Kind of like a drawing of a crab.
Yeah.
That's
Okay, here you
fun.
go. Here's 2 more penguins just kind of chilling on the
Oh,
rocks.
they're on their bellies.
Yes, they are.
Oh, hi guys. Oh,
Just
they're
hanging out.
so
I mean, and
cute.
I don't know a ton about penguins, so it's not like I could recognize these ones compared to like emperor penguins or whatever kind. They look fairly penguin-like. There's black spots,
they're
parts. There's
they're
white parts.
A bit of a classic penguin look, which is fun.
Yeah.
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 I would say that a daily penguin is one that looks most like a classic penguin, but these ones are pretty close to that too.
Yeah.
Oh, little buddies. Oh, there's some
Yeah.
fun crabs. Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
now show me the blue-footed booby or any of
Okay,
them.
so yeah. Well, that one was the one that was the easiest to see and was the
Okay.
most common, was definitely the blue-footed booby. So I will move up to I got to find the island that they were on. Oh, here we go. So, we've got some blue-footed boobies here.
Ooh.
So their feet are really, truly blue, but their beaks are also blue. and then their body is mostly white, and then their wings are kind of a darkish brown color. And then my favorite part is like their neck and up to their head, because it's like this, you know, and I'm not going to remember the official terms, but like when someone bleaches their hair, but it's not all of it,
Frosted.
it's like relatively short hair, but it's like
Frosted.
just on the tips
Yeah.
a little bit, and you get this like depth
Yes.
to the way that it looks. That's
called
kind
frosted.
of okay.
Yeah.
Frosted tips. Yeah. It has that type of look because it's a darker color feather, like deeper, closer to their actual skin, but then it's white on the outside, and it's just beautiful.
Wow. Something that I'm finding really interesting about them is that their eyes are,
Yeah.
it looks like their eyes are at the same part of their body as the beak. Like, I feel like a lot of times the beak doesn't go that far back, or like
Yeah.
the skin or the material, whatever it is that makes
Yeah.
up the beak is like, I don't know, isn't that far back on their head. Their feet are so funny. It looks like they stepped in paint.
Yeah, no, they're so blue. They're so blue.
They're so funny.
Yeah,
Aw,
it's
man.
really cool.
That's
And
so
again, like,
fun.
I was like, this is we're looking at a selfie right
Yeah.
now of me with them in the background. Like they're just right
They're
there.
just right there. That's so cool.
Yeah, just like on the cliffs, overlooking the ocean. Like it was it was
Wow.
gorgeous. It's another frigate bird. But like as you can sort of see, like this is a fairly stark landscape. Like there's no trees
Yeah.
here.
Very
Like it's
flat.
short, like shrubbery.
Mhm.
Not a lot. Earlier on this same island, there were cacti that basically look like prickly pear, if you know what that looks like.
Oh, fun. That's cool.
But they have a unique development on this island that I thought was really cool. Because the iguana eat the cacti, like that's their main source of food.
Mm-hmm.
These particular cacti have evolved thick trunks that look more like a tree.
Wow. That looks like
So that
somebody took cactus leaves or whatever they're called and like stuck them to a tree.
To the trunk of a tree.
Yeah.
And it's so that the iguana can't just eat the cactus from the bottom.
Wow.
Right? And so what the iguana do is they wait for those different kind of like lobes of the cactus to fall off, whether it's like from wind and it blows off or whatever, and then they eat them that way.
Wow. Wow. That's so, I've never seen a cactus look like that.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, so it looks like oops, where'd it go? That's an even better one where you can see like close up to the, like it looks like the trunk of a tree. It is like thick and it's solid. It's not, green. It's a dark brown color. Like if you just saw that, you would probably not picture a cactus. You would just picture a tree at the top
Also,
of
the
it.
iguana looks like he stepped in either yellow paint or puke.
Yeah, so one of
It's not
the land iguanas is this kind of orangish yellow color with like brown on his back, and that's a male because he's more colorful to try and attract a female.
I'm not very attracted to that iguana though. So, but
Well, okay. Well, maybe if he did his fancy dance, you would feel differently. So yeah, the blue-footed boobies are gorgeous. I never saw the Nazca boobies up close, not up all that close because they tend to live just like on the edges on the cliffs, but they're like mostly white, which is also cool. It's just not quite as impressive as the blue,
yeah,
in my opinion.
yeah, that's so fun. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. So what other fun science things did you see?
Well, we saw the hybrid iguana. So one of the things that's interesting about the Galapagos is, so most iguana are land, like they live on land, and they just like lumber around. You can't see me, but I'm lumbering around with my arms right now. Here, I'll show you so that you can see, so you can get a kick out of it here. Right, so they've got like you still can't see. They got their arms and are like lumbering around. Right, so like they don't have a lot of range of motion in their legs, so they tend to just like move their whole bodies like back and forth a little bit. And so, but the there in the Galapagos, there is a marine iguana that has evolved the ability to swim in the water and to eat phytoplankton in the water.
Wow.
Which is unique, I think, to the Galapagos. I don't think they exist anywhere else.
That's cool.
So that's unique in and of itself. And then in addition to that, there's a hybrid. So there's a land iguana and a marine iguana that make their own little baby iguanas. That's a hybrid of the two. And they don't yet know if that hybrid iguana can produce fertile offspring or not. So we're in the middle of potentially witnessing the process called speciation, where you end up with two separate species and you can create a new species.
Cool. Is that like if a mule could have babies?
Yeah. Similar to that,
okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's cool. Okay, tell me about more science things on this trip.
Okay, one really cool thing that has nothing to do with animals.
No, just any science things.
Yeah. I saw the Southern Cross.
Okay, I don't know what that means.
So, in the Northern Hemisphere, we can only see half the constellations.
Really?
A little bit more than half.
Wait, but wouldn't it? Why?
Because we're on half of the Earth, and the other part of the Earth blocks half of them from our view. The Earth spins around this way. It doesn't spin like over itself. Like
so you
the
saw
poles don't flip.
Stars?
I saw different constellations that we do not see in the Northern Hemisphere.
What? Now, is this one of the best spots to view stars because it's on the equator? Like,
yes and no. I mean, the ship had a bunch of lights, so there was still some light pollution, but we did see the Milky Way, which is super fun because we can't see that in the city. And so the Southern Cross, so you know the North Star. You've heard of the North Star.
Yep.
Okay, Polaris.
Yep. Not
the brightest in the night sky. A lot of people think it is. It's not. It's like the 49th brightest, so it's like not even close. Yep, definitely. And the Southern Hemisphere doesn't have a star that is more or less above its South Pole. So there is no star there like there's in the Northern Hemisphere.
Okay.
But there's a constellation called the Southern Cross that points towards it. So it's just 4 stars that kind of make a triangle or a cross. I guess that wouldn't be a triangle. I guess that would be what is that called? A trapezoid? I don't know what that shape is. But anyway, you can make a cross out of it, and it points to the South Celestial Pole. So like in the sky, like where the South Pole would be.
That's
and
really cool.
Even though I've been into the Southern Hemisphere before, I've never actually seen the Southern Cross. And so that was like a goal of mine, is to see the Southern Cross. And I totally saw the Southern Cross.
Wow, that's
which was
very
super fun.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Were your students scared of you because of how much you were nerding out about that?
No, because I brought out my green laser pointer and they thought that was cool.
Oh, okay. There you go. You brought them into your nerddom, so that's good.
Exactly. And it was super interesting too, because like even some of the constellations that you can normally, like that you would see in the Northern Hemisphere, are all flipped. And so like I was disoriented, and I knew I would be, but like you could see the Big Dipper, but it was completely flipped from the way that it typically is this time of year here.
Weird.
And normally you can see everything, for lack of a better word, because it's not completely accurate, but above the Big Dipper. But that the Big Dipper was right down on the horizon. So all the other constellations that you normally see north of the Big Dipper were below the horizon, and we couldn't see them at all. And then everything else was upside down. And like Orion was like on its side, which typically Orion is like up and down. So like everything was just like oriented differently than I was used to.
Wow.
Which was super cool. And then also, so the moon had just passed a new moon, right, as we were getting there.
Okay.
And so it was moving to the waxing crescent moon. But because we were technically in the Southern Hemisphere, it was waxing from the other side.
Ooh.
Which is super cool. So I took pictures every night that I could see the moon. I took a picture of the moon just to compare it, because it was just super cool. Because, I mean, technically it's not the other side, but because when you're in the Northern Hemisphere, you're not exactly, but more or less looking down towards the moon. When you're in the Southern Hemisphere, you're looking up towards the moon. So you're looking from the reversed side. So it makes it look like the moon is actually upside down. compared to your perspective.
Weird. Oh, that's
Yeah, so everything
weird.
happens in reverse,
Huh.
which
That's
is cool.
so weird. Wow, that's very cool. Any other cool like space things that you saw?
Space things. I think that was most of what we saw.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were just some cool, like atmospheric stuff that we saw from time to time that took pictures of and stuff.
Cool.
But
That's so fun.
this trip is different than a lot of trips where we weren't necessarily going and seeing different sites in the same way as we were seeing different islands and the organisms that lived on those islands.
Yeah.
And so like, for example, one of the things that we saw, remember I talked about that frigate bird that was flying past? So the frigate birds, the males, have this like red pouch that hangs down below kind of their beak and neck area. And when they are trying to attract a mate, they inflate it. And it looks kind of like a big strawberry.
Whoa.
It's this big, red pouch. And then they like wave their wings around and make noises to try and attract the females. And so like that was super cool because they were doing that on one of the islands. And then the blue-footed boobies do this one of the things that they're known for, besides their blue feet, of course, is their really intricate courtship rituals. Where they do like this like dance where they like pick up their feet and drop their feet, and then one of them does what's called pointing, where they like whistle and like point their beak down, and then they turn their wings like sideways.
Wow.
And so yeah, it's pretty cool. I got some of it on video. I don't remember which one because I got a lot of videos. So like we just like watched these birds do this like right in front of us, not even like kind of like off in the distance, but super easy to see them.
They looked like they were like pointing to something in the sky at the same time.
Yeah, they're kind of like fighting. And so they like stand and like, right? Yeah, they just kind of like lift up their feet in a really awkward way and just like, hey, look at my feet. There he goes. And he points, right? So he like does this weird thing. And he's like whistling and and they're like, see, look at my feet. I got cool feet. Don't you like my feet?
Wrestlers, the way they're doing like a slow step back and forth thing.
Yeah. So that was, and then,
I want
but then
rap
the female
music playing over this.
The female's like, yeah, no, I'm not interested. I'm good. Yeah, you haven't impressed me yet. So then he's gonna like go after her, and then he's like, wait, you're going too fast. Wait for me. Wait, hold up. So it was just so cool to watch. Again, like these are things that you see like on TV on nature shows,
yes,
right?
Absolutely.
And like we were watching it live in front of us.
Wow.
Which was really, really cool.
So is that because of the time of year you went that you saw that more?
I don't know, actually. I think the frigates reproduce year round.
Okay.
I don't know about the boobies, if they do or not.
Okay.
Let's see what Google says. So it looks like they'll reproduce females lay only 1 or 2 eggs that's the red-footed booby, every 15 months or so.
Oh, wow. That's pretty slow.
So, yeah, so even the blue-footed one, it's about once a year. But I think that they're not all laying at the exact same time of year.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Interesting.
So that was just cool to, be able to see these like courtship rituals and all this really cool stuff that, again, it felt like watching a nature documentary, but we were just right there. I think the last thing that I will talk about will be, again, the oldest island that we went to. We went and saw, we went to a tortoise reserve. So we saw the giant tortoises.
How giant is giant?
Pretty big. They're pretty giant. So the giant tortoise at like 50, 70 centimeters, which I don't know if that helps you at all, since it's not imperial units. But like over a foot, like maybe 2 feet. Okay. 3 feet. Yeah, probably. I'll get a picture here and you can see. Let's see. That's so cute. Turtles. Oh, sorry, tortoises. So, and again, like they're just right there. And we were just right there next to them and they're just kind of chilling and like walking around. And I know that like tortoises have the reputation of being really slow.
Mm-hmm.
But like I wouldn't describe them as, they didn't seem slow as much as they seemed like methodical to me.
Mm.
So like they just kind of like when they wanted to move, they could move. They're just big.
Mm.
Like so something that big is not gonna like be running per se.
Yeah.
Right? And they look a lot like dinosaurs.
They do. Yeah.
You know, just like
it looks
very
like a dinosaur like coming out of an egg, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, they totally do.
The
and their
feet.
toes are funny because they don't like land flat, which is funny. But it was cool to see them for a number of reasons, but not the least of which is they're just big and they're cool looking. And there was a section that we were hanging out in, and then one of them just started walking from one part of the reserve, like right through us, right to the next part of the reserve. You're just walking on through. Here he comes. And so we're just like, oh, I guess we got to move out of his way. You know, and he's just kind of come along there. And we saw one that I think was trying to, shall we say, wrestle with another one. Climbed on the back of another one.
Okay. I definitely saw that at Disney World when I was a child and thought that they were trying to climb over a fence.
Yeah. Yep, that's it. But it was not successful because he fell over into the water, which was really funny to watch.
Oh man, that's funny.
I didn't get that on video, but one of our other people did. And then they also like the same in the tortoise reserve, they show you like the little baby tortoises that they like raise, and so they have like the little tiny ones like in the little cages.
They're so tiny.
Yeah, they're really tiny, like palm sized.
Yeah. And they get so big.
They do. I mean, you know.
But over like years and years.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, you know, you got your medium-sized ones. And it was just really cool to be able to see these creatures. And, okay, the reserve is not necessarily the wild quite like it was on some of the other islands, because it is a place where they're, like, trying to, like, protect these giant tortoises. But it still was this area where they had the free range to, you know, roam around or whatever. It wasn't us. It wasn't like our area that they were in. We were in their space, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's just a really cool experience overall to be able to experience that, I don't have a better word. Just because that's not the normal experience, right? Like most of the time when I see animals, if they're in the wild, they're like urban animals and they're freaked out and they don't want to get close to you, or they're dangerous. Mm-hmm. Or it's in a zoo, and so there's this, you know, this barrier in between, whether it's glass or it's a fence or it's a moat or whatever. There's this barrier in between, and it's just a different experience when there's no barrier between you and the animal.
Wow. It's really so cool. Wow.
Yeah. It was really cool.
That's so fun. Well, thank you so much for telling me all about your trip. Oh,
You're
man.
welcome.
Oh, it's so fun.
Is it on your list now, Cheryl?
I think so.
There are penguins, Cheryl.
I know. I want to see the penguins in the wild. That sounds so cool. Yeah. So I have a question for you based on the title of our show. Take me with you. If you could take me with you to just one thing on your trip, what would it be and why?
Well, I mean, I think what I would need to do is I would need to take you to go see the penguins.
Yep. That is the right answer, and you passed.
If I didn't take you to see the penguins, you would never speak to me again.
Yeah, well, I know. I was like, you took me to the Galapagos to not see penguins? Excuse me? They're like right around that corner, and it's not where you took me.
Yeah.
Oh, penguins. That's so fun. Did you see penguins swimming?
I did not see any penguins swimming.
Okay.
They were just on those rocks. They were just on land.
Gotcha. Oh, that's so fun.
Sorry.
It's all
hate to disappoint you.
Yeah. So fun. Yay.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to my stories and me rambling on about how beautiful the Galapagos Islands are. But we're going to go ahead and move on to our final segment called Wish You Were Here, where each of us will share a travel attraction from our many travels. Think of it kind of like a little mini postcard with a snapshot of this one thing that we think is really, really cool. We'll just kind of tell you a little bit about it and say, oh, wish you were here, because it's so awesome. So Cheryl, what would you like to do for your Wish You Were Here for this week?
I just went to this one a week ago today, actually.
Okay.
So it's nice and recent, which is really fun. So I was down in LA for the wedding of a good friend of mine, Beth, the one who does our artwork, actually. And my now fiance, Daryl, was down there with me. And so we decided to stay after the wedding and go like do something in LA. So the part that is not my Wish You Were Here, but I thought I should tell you as a follow-up to one of your Wish You Were Here's.
Boy, this is getting complicated.
We went to the tar pits, the La Brea tar
Yay!
pits. Yeah,
you finally went to the tar pits.
We did, so that was really fun. Daryl said he wanted to go, and so it was his birthday, so I was like, didn't tell him we were going, but we went there first. And so we were there for like, I don't know, 15 to 30 minutes, something like that. We like walked around. Oh,
so you weren't there very long.
No, we didn't go in the museum, but I did get to poke tar with a stick, so I feel
Isn't that fun?
Successful. Yes, it's like honey, pretty much. It's a very
it's
thing.
weird.
Yeah.
It's a weird consistency.
So that was really fun. It was fun to see like some of the like dig spots or whatever too, and so that was cool. So yeah, it was fun. So just want to let you know that thanks for the suggestion. But the
You're
other
welcome.
thing we did that day that was not too far from the La Brea tar pits is we went to Hogwarts and Hogsmeade.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh boy. I'm a little jealous.
So yeah, we went to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter in Universal Studios Hollywood.
So do you just go to that? Is it its own thing?
No,
or is it part of the Universal Studios?
It's one of the lands at Universal Studios.
Okay.
It is pretty much the only place we spent time on, other than we went on like the studio tour, which is like an hour-long like tram ride around.
Is that the thing where like Jaws comes up and like scares you and you see King Kong and all that?
Here's one that you will enjoy is that well you know Whoville.
Yes.
You're familiar with Whoville. So you get to see Whoville, which is styrofoam. It's made of styrofoam, so that's kind of interesting.
Okay.
And then you turn the corner and there's the Bates Motel.
Oh,
so,
all right.
That's kind of a fun little contrast between the two things. So I think I actually got a picture where you can see both things at once, and so that was pretty
That's
funny.
hilarious.
But pretty much we just spent time like in the Harry Potter area, and it is so well done. Oh my goodness.
Is it?
It was just so fun. Yeah. And
well, and this is coming from a Disney connoisseur here,
yes,
right? So you've been to Disneyland a million times.
Oh yeah. Big Disneyland fan, and it definitely felt to the level where I was like, this feels like Disney did this. Like it felt like
it's that good.
That Disneyland level of like the line for the ride was like you're going through Hogwarts. Like you walk into Hogwarts itself.
Ride. There's only one ride.
There's two rides.
Okay.
And so, but you go into like the Hogwarts castle, and then you're in line for the ride, and the whole line is just, it's a lot like how Disneyland does it, where like everything is entertaining along the whole way. And so there's like these video projections that kind of just looks like an actor is standing there telling you something about some storyline. And then, so at one point it's Dumbledore is telling you about something. And then at one point it's like Ron and Hermione and Harry are there. And so just the whole line was really fun. And then the ride itself was a combination of kind of like a ride where it walks you through like a story. And then at like another spot in the line was a room with all the like portraits, and they were talking to each other. And so
cool.
like there was this whole like storyline going on between like these like you probably could have stood in there for a while and like, you know, heard this whole story and everything. So that was really fun. And then the ride itself was kind of a combination of like what I would call a storybook ride, I think is what they're called at Disneyland, where like it walks you through like a story Like as you're on the ride, there's like a plot and things happening and stuff, combined with a 3D ride. So there's spots where you're the quote unquote like car, the thing that you're in is like hardly moving at all and kind of shaking, but you have on the 3D glasses, and so like it feels like you're going through things, and then it actually does move and goes through like some things in person, and it was really well done. At one point you're like on the Quidditch field, and there's spiders that like made me very nervous at one point too, and there's a dragon, and so that was such a fun adventure. And then, the main, like, area of this, like, park is Hogsmeade. And so you're in Hogsmeade. So we went and had lunch at the Three Broomsticks. And I got bangers and mash. And I had butterbeer. And, and so it was just, like, everything was great. There was, like, Zonko's Joke Shop. And there was Honeydukes. And...
that's fun.
Like the wand shop. Why am I forgetting the name of the wand shop?
Ollivander.
Thank you.
Did you get a wand? Did you get a personalized wand?
No, they're expensive. I don't.
Yeah.
What would I do with that after that day?
You would cast spells with it. Duh.
I'm such a minimalist. I was like, no. But it was so cute because, like, in the wand shop, like the style of it felt very much like from the films and the books, where like it was a little like haphazardly organized and everything. You know what I mean? It's like
eclectic.
So that was really fun.
That's fun.
And you could read about like the different materials of the wands, and it was kind of like a personality thing. So Daryl and I both like figured out which ones we were. So that was really fun. So like here's the
well, that's a lot of wands.
Yeah, that's the wand shop. I mean, there's like different characters wands that you can get. So that was fun. In Hogsmeade, like all of the rooftops are like different shapes, and the chimneys are leaning different ways, and they all have snow on them. So just like the whole experience was very fun and magical. And
that's super cool.
Like you went in and looked in the window of one shop, and
oh, it's like the Quidditch stuff, and it's like jumping around.
Yeah,
that's
so you
super
could
fun.
see like the Quidditch equipment and like the not bludgers. It was so fun. And the music is playing everywhere. And there's so much music from the films that, like, that was really fun, too.
Mm-hmm.
The other ride
John Williams, amazing.
Yeah. Oh, man. It was so good. The other ride was, like, 2 seconds long. But you do get to see Buckbeak at the start of the ride sitting in his nest, and he's real cute. So that was very fun.
That's fun. No, it is the bludger. The bludger is the ball.
It is the bludger. Okay. All right. So you got to see the bludgers like trying to like get out of their little like chained up area. So that was really good. So it was so fun. It just like the design was good, everything. There was an actor right at the start where you could take a picture with the Hogwarts Express, and he was speaking in a British accent, and he asked me if I was from America. And then, you know, like all these different things. And so that was really cute. So, yeah, so good. You gotta go. You gotta go. The good thing with Universal is that it's easier to get discount tickets than Disneyland. So, like, I have, depending on the day you go on, if you select the day in advance, they'll give you a discount. And then there are different days that are additionally discounted, probably if they're less popular. And then I have a AAA membership. And so I got an additional discount with that.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, it's still expensive, but, like, you know, it was cool. So, yeah. I just spent a lot of time talking about that, but it's Harry Potter, so. All right,
they're the beaters. The people are the beaters.
The people are the beaters.
And the bludger is the ball.
Yep, there we go. Yep. All right. Do you feel happy with knowing that information now and not having
yes.
that? Yep, questioning your brain.
That makes me feel better, yeah.
Good. All right, Ryan, so what is your wish you were here?
Yeah, so my wish you were here is it's really 2. But
so you're cheating.
I'm cheating.
Okay.
Because I did it during the same excursion.
Okay.
So this is in Croatia.
All right.
And Croatia has hundreds of islands. So we were in Split, and so we did this like boat cruise out in between a bunch of the islands. And I think these 2 things that I'm about to mention, I believe were around the island called Hvar, which is spelled Hvar, and I'm probably spelling it wrong, or pronouncing it wrong, but Hvar. And It's the blue cave and the green cave. Creatively named, I know.
Cool.
But they're very cool. So the blue cave is a cave that is blue. No surprise there.
Is it
but
blue like the blue-footed booby?
Yeah, actually a very similar shade of blue. Kind of this like kind of aqua blue, blue-greenish.
Is blue?
Yeah, so here's the deal. So somehow through erosion, the cave has been worn out on the inside, and like the bottom underneath the water has been eroded out. So like if you were to swim down, you could come up and pop up inside this cave, right? Or there's like a little entrance from the side, but it like goes in. So the only light that enters this water cave, right, is actually the light that shines in underneath the edge of the cave that has been eroded underneath. So it's filtered through the water. And so it lights the cave from below. This is not making sense to you, is it?
That's so interesting. It's hard to picture, but like, it's
Yeah.
been lit from
So-
below?
So like if you're in the cave and you're looking out towards where the rest of the ocean, or I guess the sea is,
Yeah.
right? You would see the wall of the cave like coming down. It would go underneath the water for, I don't know, several feet, and then it would just stop and it would be open below that.
Wow.
And because it's open, light from the sun can filter through that water and then spread out into the cave inside. And so
Wow.
it creates this blue glow inside the cave.
Wow.
And it's beautiful. I mean, the cave is not super big, but it's gorgeous. Just this blue, clear, like that tropical blue that you think of like with tropical
Yes.
water.
Yeah.
It's like that shade of blue, but that is the only light that's actually entering the cave. So that light lights up the cave.
Wow. That sounds so cool. And then
It's
there's
very
a green
cool.
one?
So then there's the green one,
Why
which
is
is
it green?
separate. It's in a different location,
Okay.
right? So you take the boat over, and this one's a little bit different. So it's opening again. It's a cave, and there's water underneath it, but it's open out to the rest of the sea. So it's kind of like this archway, kind of like entrance, and you can go in. But then because it's like arched, there's stuff above it, right? So
Okay.
like there's ground up above, so you could potentially like go up and like walk up on basically the surface of the cave, if you will.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then there's a hole in the roof of the cave,
Okay.
right? In the top part of the cave. And the sunlight shines through this hole down into the water that's in the cave.
Wow.
And then there's this circle in the cave that's lit green.
Wow. So it's like a green spotlight then.
Yeah.
That's
and like
so
you can
cool.
actually like see, it's really cool because you can see the beam of light as it comes through this hole, and then as it hits the surface of the water, you can even more clearly see the light rays as they travel through the water because it's so much darker around it because it's like deeper into the back of the cave. It's not like dark, but it's a lot darker. And then this is like intense sunlight just shining through it. And so it ends up being this, it's not like green, but it's kind of like a bluish green
Mm-hmm.
color. And it's really cool. It's kind of this eerie, because the water, of course, is like moving. And so it's this kind of eerie, bluish
Wow.
green spot
That's
in
so cool.
the middle of this cave.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very cool.
So
So the
fun.
blue and green caves in Croatia off the coast of Split near Hvar Island.
So that's going to be the Mediterranean then?
Yes.
Okay.
Technically, I believe it's the Aegean Sea. Aegean
Okay.
Sea? Is that the right one? There's two that start with A. Aegean and something else. Because it's between, so Croatia is on the east, and then Italy is on the west.
Cool. That gives some context for that location too then. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Wow. How fun.
Yep,
More
wish
things
you were
to
here.
add to the list.
Yep. Okay, I think that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed hearing about all of our different adventures and cool places to go. We would love if you would follow us at Timwy Podcast. That's TMWY Podcast on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. We'll be posting pictures and updates and cool things, and you can even tag us in some of your adventures so that we can see some of the cool places that you have been.
You can also email us at timwepodcast@gmail.com and send us your travel stories or questions or wish you were here's, or maybe you have an idea for a guest for our show.
Yeah, you could also send us a text message or leave us a voicemail with any feedback about the show. We would love to hear what things you like, what things maybe you don't like, any of those things. You can send that or leave that at 406-763-8699, or another way of thinking about that would be 406-POD-TIMWY. Please also rate and review us on whatever you're listening to or iTunes, and please subscribe so that you don't miss all of our great travel stories that we get to hear from our guests every week.
As always, thank you so much to Beth Morrell for our awesome artwork. You can check out more of her artwork at Beth Is Something.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Beth. That's going to do it for this week. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, take me with you.
Take me with you.
Can we get a sailboat chasing down the sunset as we float round and round the globe? Salty air and balmy nights, guided only by the lights above, and a little love. Oh, the world is out there waiting to explore, and all our troubles here wanting to be ignored. Oh, let's go to India and Ireland, round Africa and back again. We don't really need to know just where we'll go. Maybe Canada, then to Brazil, then through the Alpine foothills. All I really want to know is, can we go? Oh baby, can we go round and around the globe? Set the sails to the wind. I'm not even asking if or when we're coming back again. Got the anchor cast away. No sun's waiting for another day. No time left to stay. 'Cause all the waters out there need some company. And who could ride them better now than you and me? Oh, we're home free to India and Ireland, round Africa and back again. We don't really need to know just where we'll go. Maybe Canada, then to Brazil, and through the Alpine foothills. All I really want to know is, can we go? Oh baby, can we go round and round the globe? All the places we could see, it doesn't matter where we'll be, as long as there is you and me. Australia and Germany, Japan and then the Philippines, Puerto Rico, Tobago, Jamaica and then Providence, then up to Maine. It just makes sense, and yeah,